Your thoughts determine your actions, and your actions determine your results. It is only if you give up that failure is permanent. I always say marriage is an ancient institution. You can't live it with modern rules. I'm going to be sharing with you about boundaries in relationships. Every relationship needs boundaries. There is no relationship that you will have that will be one that is successful or effective. If it's not one that has boundaries. If you are a teacher and a pupil, that relationship needs boundaries. If you're a parent and a child, that relationship needs boundaries. If it's the relationship between a boss and an employee, that relationship needs boundaries. The relationship between a pastor and a parishioner, it needs boundaries. Our relationship with God even needs boundaries. Every single relationship falls or stands on the strength of its boundaries. What are boundaries? What are boundaries? Boundaries are parameters of something. It's the extent or degree to which, for example, a person can go in a relationship. Or it's the guidelines or limits or agreed behaviors or actions, okay, that a relationship defines. So let me give you an example. For example, within a marriage, a boundary is a limit we put on ourselves in order to honor our spouse and in order to honor our marriage. Now, why are boundaries important? Okay, boundaries are important because they create the framework for a relationship to succeed. So today what we're going to talk about boundaries in 4 key areas, okay, of our relationship and our life. We're going to talk about boundaries in our thought life. We're going to talk about boundaries in our affections. We're going to talk about boundaries in our speech. And then we're going to talk about boundaries in our behavior and actions. And if I have time, I'll try to talk about setting boundaries if you're in a relationship that does not have strong or effective boundaries at the moment. Okay? So first thing, let's look at boundaries in speech, boundaries in our speech. One of the key ways in which you can know whether or not a relationship is strong or whether or not a relationship has clear boundaries in other areas is by how a couple speak to each other. The way we talk to each other is often an indication of boundaries in other areas of our lives. So, for example, if a child says to a parent, F off mom or F off dad, what does that show? Apart from it needs a good slap, that speech is saying the child is out of bounds in other areas of their life, is it not? So that's boundaries in speech. Let's look at boundaries in our thought life. When we talk about boundaries, people find it a little bit strange when we talk about thoughts because we think about boundaries about things we say, things we do. But the reason why boundaries in our thought life is important is because it is out of your heart that the issues of life proceed. Matthew 12:35, it says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And what you see is very connected to what you think. So it's also important to put boundaries on your side. Because what you think upon habitually, you will eventually act upon. Without thought, there can be no action. And without sight, there can be no thought. It's very, very important. Very, very important. So your thought life is very, very important. There must be boundaries in your thought life because sooner or later, what you think about is going to show up in your actions. Number 3, boundaries in affections. And that's so important for men especially. Can I speak to men? Because I know some things are more challenging for you, I'm told, than for us women. You know, although it's changing now, I was going to say women are not generally moved by physique and stuff, but that's a lie now with all these six-pack men and, you know, muscle men and women going to stag parties and things. So a lot of things are changing, you know. But if you know that an area is a challenge for you, then maybe you need to take a leaf from Job's book. Our affections also need boundaries. Our affections is what we like, the things we have a predilection to or a taste for. They need boundaries. Colossians 3:5, it speaks of inordinate affections. How many of you have ever read this scripture?